All right, so we're continuing in going through Keith Folse's great grammar book, teaching Keys to Teaching Grammar to English Language Learners Practical Handbook. I will say it is very practical. The short time I've been in ESL classes as a volunteer or substitute teacher, I've been able to pull examples from the book or points and explanations from the book to give my students, and then I've also been able to bring questions my students have and look it up in the book. So it's really practical. A phrase we have in English, if you are an English learner joining us, is don't judge a book by its cover. That is to say, you can probably guess what it means. But so don't judge a book by its cover, as in appearances can be deceiving. If you see a person who looks like mean and grumpy and dirty, don't judge him by his appearances. Maybe he just, fell out of a truck and is having a bad, so you never, as in you never know what's inside a person or inside a book unless you see for yourself. But so that's the expression, don't judge a book by its cover. In this case, the cover says that it's practical. I have found it is practical. So my joke I was making is, we say don't judge a book by its cover, but like this cover seems great because it seems all true in my experience. So that's a bit of little turn of phrase. So we're going to be covering chapter 4 in these red slides, which is actually, most of the way through the book. This is where chapter 4 starts. These are the hot seat questions, or frequently asked questions. I always thought hot seat meant like if you are someone who gives a news report and they say, oh, your mic is hot, your seat is hot, as in you are live, you are being recorded, so, like put your game face on or be ready to present. The internet said that it is a term that originated from the electric chair. So when you would electrocute criminals who were on death row to death. Again, that was just a cursory or superficial internet search. You can fact check me if you want, but I'm going to move on because I don't actually care that much. So, understanding that English learners, so ELs, English learners, make different grammar mistakes than native speakers. Again, this is something we covered way back in the introduction video. So English learners make mistakes based on one, natural language learning, but then they also make mistakes based on their first language. And so if you as the teacher know a bit about, your student's first language, and oftentimes first languages are similar in a similar branch of the language family tree. So Trenton Spanish speakers may make similar mistakes as opposed to Arabic or Chinese speakers. So when students give us a difficult question, we should focus on building knowledge and resources to give them a real answer, not just brushing it off as, English is just weird like that. Obviously, it's fine. You don't have to answer every single question and, because you don't have time to Google every single answer you don't know. But at the same time, students deserve more than just being brushed off with their good questions every single time. So there's a balance in between is what we're trying to find. So, and then never underestimate the power of non-examples. We'll go over this in a bit more depth. There's a section in chapter 5 about teaching techniques. So this would be technique 13, which is what that notation means. But anyway, so never underestimate the power of non-examples. We as native English speakers have a lifetime of building up examples of right language, what is right. So we are able to pick out what sounds right. Our students don't have that repository of knowledge. They don't have that store of good examples. So explicitly saying, this is how you don't do it. This is not correct. A good way to do this is multiple choice. Multiple choice that is straightforward, no trick questions of, oh, this could be right, part of this could be right. Just giving them, this is the right form, these are all the wrong forms, choose the right form, is usually pretty helpful. So the chapter also had a section about what do you do when you don't know the answer. This is more specifically for teachers and facilitators. So a student raises a hand in a class, you call on them, they give you a question, you have no idea. So Wolf says it's okay to stall, and I thought these were great. It's okay to stall. Ask the student to repeat. Ask other students to help. It's great to get other students involved. The more involvement you have, um, the better everybody learns. So this is something I personally struggle with. If one student raises their hand and says, "Teacher, I don't get it. Can you go over it again?" Even if that student may have come in late or, was busy, and so they're asking for a repeat when everyone else was there and listening. Like, that's not fair to the students who were there and listening. But it's also, you don't want to leave one student behind, especially on Zoom, which is how our classes have been mediated or delivered. It's very easy to lose people, either their interest or they're just initially like, oh, they were busy, so then they just never catch up. So it's always fun finding a balance. But so a good way around that sometimes is to ask another student, can someone explain it to her, like pop quiz, like see how you do. So that works sometimes, but again, that is always a balance you have to be thinking of and figuring out. So I personally feel like I'm too nice sometimes, like, oh yeah, I'll explain it again. Oh yeah, I'll explain it even again. But yeah, so that's something I'm working on personally. So English learners are usually, their questions are usually, oh, that should have an apostrophe. So their questions should usually be, sorry, not should. Their questions are usually about the correctness of phrases that they've heard while out and about. So whether in the workspace, on social media, just reading, or even that they've heard another English learner use. So sometimes it's helpful to write out the statements, either writing it on the board, typing it on a Word document and sharing your screen, having your students write it with you to get writing practice, because that's always important. So then as you write, because writing is slower, you can think and try to figure out, like, what is the answer to this question? My goodness, that's a great question. So if you're an English language learner watching this video, okay, I feel like I'm betraying teachers, but like, it's fine to try and ask more difficult questions. And if you stump your teacher, like, that's fine. That gives them practice. It makes them kind of have to step up to the plate, which is a term from baseball, home plate, and you swing a bat over home plate. So they have to kind of take responsibility to learn themselves and help you learn along with them. So it's not bad to ask these questions. So use other examples if you don't know the exact grammatical rule, grouping the examples if applicable, and to help kind of parse out the rule or to help explain it more as you go along. So yeah, so just thinking of other examples. So one thing we do in class is the pronunciation of the ED ending or sometimes the S ending, because sometimes you hear we'll just stick to plurals. So sometimes you hear the S sound, like in cats, cats, or you hear the Z sound, like dogs, dogs. And so seeing it written, it's both the S sound, or sometimes you hear the Z is sound, like roses. And so coming up with more examples where you hear those different sounds and making a list and trying to find a pattern from those lists. So anyways, moving on, keeping it interactive, getting more examples from the class until they have a general idea of more examples. So this one is just saying you can just keep going with examples until the class kind of gets it and they have more data points or examples to pull from, so they know what sounds right and what doesn't, or at least have a better idea. And you don't necessarily need to come up with the rule. Odds are there's an exception to the rule, so somewhere. But anyways, that is English. So this is our question 1, and I think I'm going to actually pause, and then you will see question 1 in a new video. So thanks for sticking with me.